All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. We are excited to share with you answers to the top 5 questions that we get from parents about the college athletics recruiting process. First, just a little bit of information about me. My name's Amy Bryant. I worked for 23 years as a college coach, coaching high level student athletes who were probably much like your children, and that they're very motivated, very unique, in their and celebrated in their own right. But they wanted to go to college and play the sport that they love. They wanted to continue playing it, and when they were going through the process, were confused and uncertain about how to make it happen. And that's what I want to help you, to help your child do today, is to make it happen for them. I At Emory, I coached 7 national championships. I had the pleasure of watching them develop and grow, not only into great students and great athletes, but great professionals. Some of my student athletes became doctors, lawyers, educators, entrepreneurs, architects, you name it, we've had it. And through their experience in college athletics with me, they were able to explore their options and pursue their dreams, and learn more about themselves in order to get there. When I was in college, I played 2 sports and have some other accolades as well that are kind of unique to me. And just like your kids will develop their own accolades as they go through the process and find their careers and reach for their goals. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 parent questions that we get. Number 1 is, does my child have what it takes to play in college? Totally legitimate question. And a lot of times we're unsure about their place. As I mentioned before, not only the student athlete being unsure about their place, but parent being unsure. Number 2, how can my child use athletics to get into college? And that's a great question. And athletics does provide strong value in the college admissions process. Number 3, when will my child hear from coaches? And this is an important piece of the puzzle here, because you can help to ensure that your child will hear from coaches, and we'll tell you how. Number 4, how do I pay for this, and is it worth it? Is it worth it to be paying money to have your child play in college? We're going to talk about all the scholarship options that are out there, some myths, some misconceptions, and how this can be a realistic option for many. And then number 5, when do we start? Is it too late? It's not too late. I can tell you that now. It's never too late. There's always options. Let's take a look and get started here. So, does my child have what it takes to be a varsity college student athlete? So, first of all, the question you need to answer as a parent is, does your child want to play college sports? So, if they want to play, and they're sure they want to play, and how you know that is by kind of looking at their last couple years, because a lot changes in high school. I mean, this students could have played a sport, from age 3 till 15, and then things kind of change age 15 to 17, right? At least that's when we see a lot of kids dropping off from the commitment. They get involved in other things. So if you look back in the last couple years and you say, they're not only still going strong in their sport, they're actually wanting more in their sport. That's a good indication that they want to pursue this at the college level. So then what I would say to you is, let's explore what type of student athlete your child is. And what I mean by that is, being a college student athlete isn't about just going to practice 3 days a week and turning the sport off when you get home and the other 4 days a week you're hanging out with friends or studying or whatever. I mean, being a college athlete is an all the time, around the clock kind of commitment. So if they are all about the grind in that way, then I would say varsity college athletics is probably right for them. But if they're more of a 3 days a week, they like their sport, but they really only like it 3 days a week, then they're more of a rec athlete, and club sports, or intramural sports is probably a better fit for them. Um, the other things you can think about is, are they using athletics for their social time? Like, is that where they get all of their social energy? And that can kind of go two ways. Like, do they like the sport because of the social, or do they like their sport so much that it becomes their social because they don't want to be anywhere else besides their sport? So if it's A, they like their sport because it's a social. They like their sport because they like their friends that are on the team. They like their sport because it's fun to be with those people. Then I'm not sure that college athletics is actually right for them. I would say that if they like their sport so much, they never want to be doing anything else. And that is why their sport has become their social, then that's probably a better indicator of why they are better suited to be playing in college. Because again, I mentioned before, it is an all-encompassing thing. And it's really hard in college to have two separate lives, have that social life outside of sports and have the your team at the same time. It's really hard to have both. um, so the real college student athletes that are very committed tend to live, eat, breathe their sport, and their teammates are their best friends. um, and they also just love the sport for the sake of the sport, not just because their friends are there. So I hope I'm explaining that well, but that's just something to explore. I would also say that if they are someone that really loves the physical benefits and staying in shape and all of that, that could be an indicator that yes, college sports is right for them. Could also be an indicator that they just need to join the gym when they're in college and stay healthy. So you need to evaluate that. I mean, the differentiator there is, if they're on a team in college, if they're committed to a team, they're doing whatever the coach is telling them to do. If they're not on a team, then they can get on the treadmill, they can do weights, they can do whatever they want, whatever day they want. And if they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. So what type of kid is your child? Are they good at taking orders and doing what the coach wants them to do to stay fit? Or are they more of like, I don't feel like that today, I'm not going to go kind of kid? That's probably not right for varsity college athletics. And then I would also say, in your evaluation, if it's right for your child, is your child super self-motivated? I've mentioned this before, can't wait to get back out there the next day. They're never satisfied. That's really an indicator that we need to pursue college athletics. And we'll talk about all the different levels in a second. And if varsity sports isn't geared towards your child, and I should say this before I go into this, there are all sorts of levels of college varsity athletics, okay? And when I say levels, I mean degrees of commitment. So there might be that college athletic team that only practices 3 days a week that could be perfect for your child, and they're still a college athlete. They're still playing intercollegiate athletics on that varsity team, but we just have to find that team. So I say that, is it right for them? Is it not? I think we have to also explore what the culture of the team is that they're looking at to know if it's right for them. And then again, I mentioned before, club sports, intramural sports are also an option if the schools that your child's looking at, the varsity teams are either too competitive, too committed, not the right fit. Then I always encourage student athletes to explore club and intramural sports as well, so that they can keep up their sport, keep up the engagement, keep up all the healthy benefits that come with being an athlete when they're in college. So let's talk about all the options. So everyone's familiar with Division One. That's what we see all the time um, in the news. The big ESPN game day stuff kind of catches our, all that hype kind of catches our attention. But only 2% of high school student athletes actually play Division One. So for the majority of high school student athletes, we are talking about exploring Division Two, Division Three, NAIA, NJCAA. These are the big ones. And then there's also some smaller governing bodies known as the NCCAA and the CCCAA. So the ends, I'll give you a little bit of a information about each one. But the common misconception in the NCAA, which includes Division One, Division Two, and Division Three, is that D1 is always better than D2, D2 is always better than D3. That's simply just not the case. While it is true that the best athletes that are out there, the real elite ones, do tend to go Division One. Everyone that's kind of underneath that elite level could be D1, D2, or D3. There's enough options out there that they can spread themselves around. And most of those student athletes are choosing the school based on the attributes of the overall school, not necessarily the attributes of the athletics program exclusively. So in Division One, there's 350 institutions, so it's pretty big. There's a lot of schools that sponsor Division One sports. The average size of the school, or the median enrollment of schools, are very large. The median enrollment's 9,000 students. 1 in 23 students on campus are athletes. In Division Two, on the other hand, there's less schools. There's only 300 member institutions, and the schools are a lot smaller. 2,500 is the median enrollment in Division Two schools. But 1 in 10 are athletes. So there's a lot more clout that comes with being an athlete at a Division Two school, because more people know who you are. In Division Three, it's the largest division, actually, with 437 member institutions, and even smaller than Division Two, as the median enrollment's around 1,700. And 1 in 6 are athletes. So again, even bigger fish in a smaller pond there. The NCAA as a whole puts 60% more resources into their sports than any other governing body. So what that means is the facilities, the support, the resources are pretty impressive at Division One, Division Two, and Division Three compared to the NAIA, which I'm going to talk to you about in a second, and definitely compared to NJCAA. So NAIA are also four-year institutions. There's 250 member institutions there. Smaller schools. There's a lot of religiously affiliated schools in NAIA. But the NAIA presents a great option for students who might be applying to college a little bit later. Many of their application deadlines are later. And they follow a very similar model as Division Two with their scholarships that they offer. So I'll talk a little bit more about scholarships in a little bit. The NJCAA is the National Junior Colleges Athletic Association. So these are all two-year schools. There's actually 525 junior college programs in the country. So it's the largest organization of college sports available. And NJCAA presents a great option for student athletes that want to play for a couple of years before then either transferring on to a 4-year to finish their 4 years at another institution, or perhaps these kids that only want a 2-year associate's degree. Maybe they're learning a trade, technical skills, something like that. So NJCAA presents some really great options for quality student athletes. And then the other two little offshoots I have here are the NCCAA, which is the National Christian Athletic Association, and then the CCCAA is the Community College Association in California, which is about There's about 100 schools. There's about 100 schools in the NCCAA as well. So these are big, college sports is big. Like there's not just the NCAA, there's lots of opportunities. And then of course I talked about club and intramurals before as well as an option. And those club and intramural options are typically available at every school. It just requires a little bit of research to know exactly what each school has, because there's no playbook for that. All right, so how can my child use athletics to get into college? So first of all, I think that your child can really use their athletics to explore more options out there that they ordinarily wouldn't have thought of. So there are over 4,000 colleges or universities in the United States. And your child can probably only list on their hands, maybe 5, 6, I mean, certainly not more than 10, just, off the top of their head. So I think athletics is going to help them to really understand everything that's out there, and use the athletics to really get some other opportunities that they might not have thought of before when it comes to college, like traveling out of state, or heading to a school that might offer a different major than they had thought of in their little bubble from home. So again, more options for them. College athletics also helps you to level up your options. So if you're a really good student, or if your child's a really, really good student and they're a great athlete, that can really help for them in the admissions process. So that's kind of their hook, right? And in this day and age, especially at the most academically selective institutions in the country, it's necessary to have a hook to be able to get in. And so you can really level up those opportunities for yourself. Your child's college counselor might suggest a certain number of schools based on your academic profile, but if you're a great athlete, you can look a little bit higher than what their list is going to present to you. The only way to know for sure if you can get into a school that's upping your level is to have the coach do an early read for your child. And if they are really interested in your child, most coaches will be able to work with the admissions office to get an early read done for you and get that support in the admissions process. And then the other thing that college athletics really does for your child in terms of the college athletics piece is that it really helps to show that your child has strengths outside of the classroom, which is essential on a college application. They might be a captain of their team. They might have had the opportunity to travel to unique places because of their engagement with the team. So there's certain experiences that your child has that other students or that their non-athlete peers just do not have, and that's directly related to their participation in athletics. So when will my child hear from coaches? So this is the $1,000,000 question, right? I mean, every kid kind of thinks that they're a good enough athlete that they're going to have coaches knocking down their door asking them to come play for them. And that couldn't be farther from the truth on how things happen, okay? The truth of the matter is that there's a timeline, particularly a recruiting timeline. Every division has their own recruiting timeline, and every governing body has their own recruiting timeline as to when coaches are allowed to reach out. But even if it's a time period when it's allowed for a coach to reach out, they might not reach out to your child. And that doesn't mean that they're not interested. That just means there's too many student athletes out there for them to cover everyone or cover everywhere. So it's really, really important for your child to advocate for themselves in this process, and I'll tell you how. and go after the schools that they are interested in, reach out to the coaches that they want to talk to, and get themselves on the radar so that they can get assessed. And we'll talk a little bit more about what coaches are going to assess, and then they can get engaged in the recruiting process with a coach. And when I say engaged, I mean a genuine engagement with the coach where the coach is really interested in who they are. And again, that stems from 9 times out of 10, your child reaching out to them, not the other way around. All right, so here is a little recruiting calendar that one of my colleagues created from the Student Athlete Advisors. And this is just a great visualization of when certain communications can happen in the recruiting process. So the biggest thing that I want you to get out of this is that June 15th for most sports is when coaches can reach out, whereas August 1st is when other things can happen for other sports. So anyways, just keep in mind when I say June 15th, August 1st, and then there's September 1st as well, I mean after the student's sophomore year. So that's key to remember, after the student's sophomore year. So freshman year, sophomore year, coaches aren't going to be having direct communication for the most part. If they're Division I, Division II, they won't be having direct communication with student athletes. The only communication that they can have in freshman and sophomore year is with your child's private coach. So that's kind of a little loophole just to know. But otherwise, June 15th is typically the day for most sports, not all sports, but most sports. And then the question is, okay, it's June 15th. How come the phone's not ringing off the hook? It just doesn't always work like that. So again, we need your child to advocate for themselves. So what does it mean for your child to advocate? First of all, this process starts with them targeting realistic schools, okay? Your child, in order to go to, big time SEC football school, they need to be like the absolute best in your area. And even then, there's still going to be kids that are better, usually. But they really, need to be the best. So if your child's sitting on the bench for your high school football team, and thinking they're going to play SEC, obviously that's not a realistic list. So we need a good realistic list. I also really encourage families to start their process with academics first, so that we're not just looking at the athletics, that we really do care about our future, our career goals. Let's make sure there's a major at the schools that you're looking at first before you reach out to the coaches. And then they need to reach out to coaches, and that's simple. They just need to send an email to the coach, letting them know who they are, letting them know their best information, their best stats that hopefully align with what the coach might be looking for. So they'll have to do a little research on that. But that's the simplest way to get a coach's attention. In basketball and football, I would say Twitter is really important. So setting up a good Twitter profile is another really easy way to put your child out there and have your child reach out and DM coaches that way rather than email. And then I also like for students, and I like to say this, like private coaches can reach out to college coaches on your behalf, especially before your junior year, like I mentioned before, but they can get engaged in the process as well. So if your student sends an email and isn't getting a response, and your student's good enough, your child's good enough to play at that school, then let's get the private coach involved and see what the private coach can do. And then there's camps too that your child can sign up for. I'm going to talk a little bit about camps later on, just a little warning about them. But again, I would target camps that are realistic options for your child before spending money flying, all over the place to get your child seen. If a coach isn't interested in seeing your child at the beginning, they're not going to watch your child at the camp. So you need to make sure, again, realistic. And then the other way that your child can advocate for themselves is really simple. They can keep up their work academically and athletically, so they are a contender for a spot with a team, because every coach wants to make sure that they are recruiting student athletes that will be able to perform when they get to campus. All right, and here's what a coach is going to be assessing when they initially hear from your child or initially speak to your child. They want to make sure that the curriculum rigor and grades match what their school admissions office requires for admissions. Excuse me. Um, Sorry about that. Um, They are also going to look at the SAT and ACT scores, especially at larger flagship schools that are still requiring them. Um, Even if they are schools that are test optional, they might still ask for your child's standardized test scores. They're going to look and see if financially your family can afford the school based on the scholarship information or scholarship options that they have, or the merit options that they have. We'll talk about those more in a minute. And then they're going to check and see if the talent level of your child really matches what they're looking for in their program. So that's what a coach is really looking for in the first kind of interactions with your child. If they like what they see in those first interactions, then they're going to engage. And a real, true, genuine engagement looks like the coach asking your child for a phone call, or your coach or the coach agreeing to meet with your child when they're on campus. Or even further along the line would be the coach inviting your child to come on campus for an official visit, or even an unofficial visit where the team kind of takes your child under their wing and shows them everything that they've got. And then, of course, if all goes well in the engagement, then the coach would offer a spot to your child. So there really isn't too much in college athletics of your child showing up on campus and being able to just walk onto a team and play for a team. Really, ahead of time, they're going to need to be recruited in order to be a student athlete, and that's at most colleges now. So, and this is what I was saying before about camps and showcases. So I always put out a word of caution that camps and showcases are big business. There's a lot of private camps and showcases out there. I mean, a lot of, smart people have said, wow, people will pay anything to get their kids seen. Let's create a camp. And they're unfortunately not always what you think. I mean, sometimes these companies will say certain coach is going to be in, and the coach doesn't show up. The best advice I can give you on camps and showcases is have your child first identify the schools they're interested in, then make sure the coach is interested in them after they've advocated for themselves. And if so, double check with the coach and ask directly if they'll be at a certain ID camp, or if they are hosting an ID camp themselves on their campus, and if the coach really wants them to come, so the coach can see them perform. That's the best way to safeguard your wallet. All right. And that is not where I meant to go. Hold on one second. Sorry. Okay. So how do I pay for this? And is it worth it? So this is when I kill everyone's hopes and dreams of getting an athletic scholarship. So the average Division I scholarship is only $10,400. When you eliminate football and basketball, that drops to about $8,700. And so it's important to understand the average cost of college is anywhere between $10,000 and $36,000. That depends on obviously whether it's an in-state school, public, or out-of-state or private. But so the athletic scholarship generally does not cover everything, if anything. And that is why, where's all the money going? Well, the money is going to football. So there's only 6 NCAA Division I sports allowed to offer full scholarships for their entire roster, and those are called head count sports. These are the 6 head count sports in NCAA Division I. and the 6 head count sports and all college athletics for that matter, because the rest of the divisions are all what are called equivalency sports, which means they give partial scholarships to everyone. So, and I'll explain that in a minute. But just for perspective's sake, FBS football teams are allowed 85 full scholarships, full tuition scholarships. That's a lot. FCS is allowed 63. Men's basketball 13, women's basketball 15, women's tennis 8, volleyball's 5, and gymnastics is at 12. So if your child plays these sports, they're the best out there, then they're in better shape to get that full ride. And like I said, the rest of sports, the college sports, are all equivalency sports. So, for example, this is a soccer example. In Division I men's soccer, they are allowed to have 9.9 athletic scholarships. Their roster might hold 25 to 30 guys, but they only have 9.9 full scholarships. So what happens is a coach becomes a mathematician, and they divide up those 9.9 scholarships among all 25 guys. So I see a lot of what's called a backloaded scholarship, where the first year freshmen coming in don't get much, but if they do well, then their scholarship renews, and they might be offered a little bit more for their sophomore year, junior year, senior year. So that's the way things work in all these equivalency sports typically. And you can see here these other number breakdowns for men's soccer, just for perspective. I do want to point out Division III, there are no athletic scholarships at all, but 80% of the students on campus receive aid, which is the most amount of aid that you see across the board in any division. So, and the aid they receive is mostly merit-based aid. So here's where actually most of the money is, if not almost all of the money. College-bound students are 17 times more likely to receive an academic scholarship than an athletic scholarship for college. And that's $2.7 billion compared to $46 billion in academic. $2.7 billion in athletic compared to $46 billion in academic. So that gives you an idea where the money is. And then I want to talk a little bit about what types of aid are out there for student athletes. So if there aren't athletic scholarships involved, or even if there is financial aid. Financial aid is need-based aid, so you would need to qualify for it. It requires you to fill out a FAFSA form, and then some schools also use the CSS profile form. And then there are merit scholarships, which really we could clump in there the athletic scholarships as well, if there are athletic scholarships. But merit scholarships are typically ones that your child needs to apply for in the application process. Sometimes there's a separate application. Sometimes there's just checking a box on when it can be considered for a merit scholarship. And the academically leaning merit scholarships don't have anything to do with athletic aid typically, or athletic merit. And then there's discounts, and discounts is money that comes off the price of tuition. Your child doesn't have to apply for it. There is, it's just something that the schools do in order to entice students to decide to matriculate. So for most schools out there, the price that you see online as the price of tuition and the total cost of attendance, that price is actually not what you will pay because of these discounts. It's not at every school. You need to look at it like there's buyers out there and there's sellers out there. And I quote that from Jeff Selingo, who wrote a book about this. But it's kind of the laws in supply and demand, whereas the schools that don't have to do much in order to fill their freshman class, they aren't giving any discounts. The schools that need to give away a little bit to fill up their freshman class, those are the ones that are the buyers, and will be giving out a little bit more in discounts. So what I recommend that you do is you calculate your EFC, which the terminology is changing this summer. So that will soon be called the Student Aid Index. Some of the forms will change as well. But calculate your EFC. You can do that on the College Board website. And after the presentation, I can send you some links for this. And then I also suggest that you fill out on the schools that your child's interested in the net price calculator. Every school is required to have one. Some schools have a My Intuition calculator, which is even a little bit easier to use and a little bit more reliable in what it spits out. And then I talked for a minute about understanding buyers and sellers and actually what you can expect to receive. But after you calculate your EFC, you can compare that number to the net price calculator, and you'll see a little bit about what your cost of attendance is going to look like. So, and we at Bryant College Coaching can help with that on the periphery side, but we are not financial aid experts, and we do have people that we would recommend you to if that was something that you really wanted to explore. If the financial aid piece is really a determining factor for your family, then I would recommend looking into that. All right, and then when we talk about whether or not it's worth it for your child to play college athletics, if they're probably not going to get a full ride, I always like to talk about all of the benefits of being a student athlete. So in 2020, there was a Gallup study that found that students who participated in athletics tended to fare better than non-athletes in academic, personal, and professional, in their academic, personal, and professional lives during college and after graduation. Studies at selective institutions repeatedly show that the athletic department student athletes have higher GPAs than the general student body as well. So, and the rationale behind that is that, teams are traveling and training 10 to 30 hours a week. So they just don't have time to waste. And so student athletes make better decisions in their free time and study because there's just no other time to study. And then the other thing is they have this automatic support system from the moment they step on campus, being on a team. So if a student does start to slip or needs help with anything along the way, team and coaches usually swoop in to assist. And then there's also accountability with the team, positive peer pressure from teammates, and then there's coaching expectations that student athletes have to live up to that they wouldn't see if they weren't playing college sports. And then lastly, student athletes develop routines that really stick for life. These are healthy routines. They're used to having to be somewhere at a certain time. They're used to exercising regularly. They're used to being part of something bigger than themselves. So when they graduate, they're more likely to stay healthy, be productive, feel good about themselves, all that good stuff. So that's a pretty big return on investment there. The other thing is the future networking opportunities that come from being a student athlete. I know from the teams that I've coached over the years, a lot of the girls graduate or the players graduate and wind up getting jobs with alums. The alums pave the way for them to be able to work at their companies. So there's a lot of benefits to being part of something for a career, a college athletics career, 4 years. And then lastly, I'll say, and I hear this a lot from families and student athletes that I work with. They'll come to me and they'll say, I played volleyball my whole life, but I think in college I'm just going to focus on my academics. And my response to that is the best way to focus on your academics is to stay engaged in your athletics. So when and how do you start? This is my recruiting readiness timeline. Feel free to take a screenshot of that if you want. But I think, the recruiting readiness timeline really starts in the freshman year when it's important to plan a curriculum that matches your family's goals for your child in college. For example, if you're looking at highly selective schools, it's going to be really important to have strong rigor on the curriculum. Sports specialization can be considered in the freshman year. I'm not a big fan of specializing before that because I think it leads to too many injuries and it can lead to burnout. But by freshman year, it's probably important to focus on one of your sports, one of your child's sports, and try to get to the best league or level possible, because that's where the best exposure opportunities come from. And then sophomore year, it's important for your family to understand, for you really to understand what your financial aid is, your financial need awareness, what your budget is for college. Your child can start creating a list. They can begin contacting coaches, even though we know that in Division 1 and 2 they can't reach back out. It's still important to get on the radar in the sophomore year, and then they can also start visiting schools in sophomore year. It will give them some perspective and onto what their preferences might be as we move along the process. And then junior year, solid understanding of the needs and strengths and those preferences. SAT and ACT prep needs to happen. I like for my student athletes to be done as juniors by January of their junior year, if at all possible. So when they're engaged in meaningful conversations with coaches in the spring of their junior year, they'll have a score that they can share. And that having the score versus not having the score can make you a more viable candidate, or at least a quicker candidate that a coach would look to grab, because they know you've got the scores they need. And then ongoing communication will continue in junior year, and the official visits will begin then as well. And then in senior year, it's important to work on those applications, get those essays done. I like for student athletes, and typically the timeline has them committed by October or November, if not earlier. And then obviously in their senior year, it's important to continue to focus on sport and academics. I've seen a lot of slippage. Once a student athlete commits to a school, they're like, I'm done. And for 6 months, they don't play their sport or they don't train, and they get out of shape. And then they wind up on campus in the fall, the first day, and they are out of shape. And the coach is like, well, what did I just do? So stay committed after commitment, and you can help your child to do that. All right, so what else can you help encourage your child to do? We've talked about all of these things. Target teams that match their abilities. You can help them create a video. You don't need to hire anyone to do this. This is something your child can handle with today's technology, and the apps that are available out there are all free. So just get 2 to 5 minute highlight video is probably all that coaches really want to see, if they even want to see it. Then they might come back to you and ask for some unedited footage, but in most cases, they're going to want to see your child play in person anyways. You can encourage your child to follow teams of interest on social media so they can learn more about programs and the culture of programs. Take your child to visit schools, and encourage your child to message the coach ahead of time to ask for a sit down with the coach. If the coach is on campus, they'll probably meet with them and give them good information that way. Make sure your child has a plan A, plan B, and plan C for college, because anything can change at any moment. We've all, learned that recently. We've got to be prepared to pivot. Help your child to email coaches. This is a really uncomfortable thing for high school student athletes to do. But it's a really important thing to do in the recruiting process. And then you all can watch live streams of games together from the comfort of your home on your couch. A lot of college athletics games are streamed these days, so you can watch. You can find the links on schedule pages from and that's not just at the top levels. I mean, you don't have to watch on ESPN. You can watch just the live stream by clicking on the schedule link on the pages for each program. And then also have your child create an account in the eligibility center. They only need to do the paid account if they're planning to play Division 1 or 2. If they're planning to play Division 3, it's a free account. So here's our advice to you. We're just wrapping up now. Your role as a parent is to be the cheerleader, be the chauffeur, be the chef, and know your budget. And that's it. Let them do the rest. Support them along the way, drive them where they need to go, make sure they have food in their belly, make sure they've got money squared away for college. or at least they understand what money they have, and that's it. Let your child take the lead in this process. And then here are some other, more specific do's and don'ts. Definitely provide support and advice. I do want you to ask the difficult questions to a coach when it comes to financial aid and scholarships. Definitely want you to encourage your child to consider their academic goals first and not to lead with athletics. And then help your child stay organized. The college athletics recruiting process can be a bit overwhelming. It's hard to keep track of all the emails. It's hard to keep track of dates and all of that good stuff. So definitely help your child stay organized with that. And then here's some big time don'ts. Don't email, text, or call a coach on your child's behalf. Let your child do it. We coaches know when an email's come from a parent and we don't like it. It doesn't feel right. So let them do their own messaging. Don't offer information about your child that you think the coach needs to hear. The coach is going to ask for whatever information they need. And that might seem a little weird to you, but I know as a parent myself, it's really hard to hold my tongue on something that I want to share with somebody about my child. Like, I feel like they should know. You should know my child's the best. But, just try to restrain yourselves a little bit and let your child advocate for themselves. This is a big one. Don't behave badly while your child competes. And I know we don't think we behave badly, but some of us have gotten in trouble with referees before, not myself. But really, when coaches are watching your child, they are watching you as well to see. Frankly, the apple never really falls far from the tree. So behave yourself when you're on the sideline. You don't want the wrong message to be given to a coach. A great trick that I learned recently is when you're watching your child play, if you tend to get a little bit overexcited, maybe yell a little bit, maybe, say some things you wish you hadn't. Take a lollipop, put it in your mouth when you're watching your child play if you know a coach is going to be there, because that'll keep your mouth quiet. And then lastly, don't assume you're invited to meetings with the coach. Let's let the coach invite you first. So sometimes coaches do want to meet one-on-one with kids to just get to know them a little better. And just kind of see how the vibe is there. If you happen to be dropping your kid off or whatever, just let the coach invite you or not invite you as they see fit. And then lastly, my best advice for you is to enlist the help of an experienced student athlete recruiting advisor. This is my little sales pitch, but I really believe that somebody that has an individualized approach, meaning they're looking at your child and their needs first. They have an independent affiliation, so they're not associated with any recruiting organization. They're not associated with any colleges. They're not associated with any private groups. They'll have your child's best interest truly at heart. They have academic and athletic knowledge, not just athletic knowledge. They're certified and experienced coach, meaning they know how to communicate with your child, and that they have some sort of professional membership that indicates there is some integrity in what they are doing with your child as they help your child. And if you happen to be interested in Bryant College coaching, you can schedule a free 15-minute consultation with us. You can head to our website there. There's a link to contact us and to schedule as well. And we'd be happy to chat with you for 15 minutes about any other questions that you have. But thank you so much for coming, and good luck to your child in the process.